You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
وتلمين هناك لشوارزنيجر.
Ya lo hace, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
You're pretty good yourself, though.
Yes, I know. Kevin and I spoke already earlier today. Kevin and I talk a lot. You might not know that. Every day,
Pretty
almost.
much
It seems
5
like.
days out of 7 at least, sometimes
Yeah.
6.
Fair enough. We had Mark Anthony Kay on our show this morning. Well, we pre-interviewed for tomorrow. So I just want to put that out there off the top. It's a good interview. Good young Canadian player playing for Louisville. They're in the semifinals of the Eastern Conference in the USL on Saturday. So look forward to that tomorrow on USL Radio. But today, in a little bit, we're going to get Simon Fudge on to talk about the Whitecaps, about the U17s, about various things. Simon's with FIFA now, FIFA.com, I should say. So that's what we'll have in a minute. But before we do all that, Kevin, you've been playing a lot of FIFA. You've been watching a lot of Bundesliga. What's on your mind right now?
I've been playing a lot of FIFA. I'm done with Alex Hunter. I'm done the first third of his career. I'm done the journey. So I moved on to my manager career. And I've decided for this time around, my first go around, to take a championship team and trying to make them in the Premier League. And some teams are very fascinating in the championship this year in reality and in FIFA. But teams like Nottingham Forest, that yes, are not necessarily having the best of season at all. They're 18 right now in the championship. They're not in relegation zone, but they're going to have to battle now to be in it. But a lot of great former teams, legendary teams are in the Premier League, the championship, and going to battle to go to the Premier League. Teams like, recent promotees and relegated teams like Norwich, like a QPR, Newcastle, and so on and so forth. But there's teams like Birmingham City, Leeds. There's teams like Wolves, teams with a lot of Aston Villa, teams with a lot of history. Well, Aston Villa might be relegated back to League One. That could be, wow, what a turnaround. But Fulham, a lot of great teams in the championship, and it's going to be a fascinating war of attrition because that's what it is to be promoted to the Premier League.
Well, precisely. The championship, it's often argued, is one of the least appreciated leagues in the world. Some people have argued that it might be the 5th or 6th best league in the world, the English Championship, and it certainly, in terms of the competitiveness, can be quite intriguing, quite exciting to watch. I do try to watch a lot of championship games. Obviously, there's a lot going on, especially this time of year when you have Major League Soccer to factor into my viewing schedule. But certainly, it can be quite compelling, and it can be a trap. You mentioned via Aston Villa, David Villa. I've got in my head there when I said that. Yes. So anyway, you talk about Villa and them going down. They could get stuck in a downward spiral that lasts for years once you go down there. Their crosstown rivals, Birmingham, are, they have been down there for a while now, and that's a team that's won a lot. With Villa, what they could do, they could match my club in a very notorious, infamous kind of stat. When Manchester City played their single year in the 3rd tier of English football, that was in 1998, they were the first club at that time to be demoted to the 3rd tier of their domestic level after having won a European trophy. Now, some of you out there might be going, wait, City's never won the European trophy, but you're forgetting that the Cup Winners' Cup used to be a thing, and they won that. So that was that. But Villa, I don't know why I keep saying Villa today. I'm too little sleep or something. But anyway,
I don't know what you're fascinated with New York City FC, but maybe you just because it's City Blue.
It is probably that, because like I said, living Major League Soccer is a lot of what my day is right now. But Villa has actually won the European Cup, so yeah, that would be quite the fall, if you think about
teams
that.
like West Ham might be playing in the championship next year. So, teams with actually great history in the past, unfortunately, might be get in the championship. No, it's a fascinating league, and we'll talk about it later. Duane, how about we take a small break and we come back with Simon Fudge? You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. Subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS postgame show, open lines after dark, 5 rings daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network. Joining us from Vancouver, Simon Fudge of Soccer Talk and FIFA.com. Simon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
We're well, Simon. I first approached you to have a conversation the other day when we first learned that the Whitecaps had been officially eliminated from the Major League Soccer playoffs. Now, I use that term officially deliberately there because I think we all kind of understood that it was unlikely that they were going to do much of anything this year beyond the CCL. So let's start with that and start specifically with a question that I asked our listeners the other day, and that relates to Carl Robinson and what his future is there. What, if anything, can you lend to the conversation about whether Carl Robinson will be the manager for the Vancouver Whitecaps moving forward?
Well, he should be going into next season. It was very interesting that you've been sort of going on this topic for a couple of weeks now, having listened to obviously the show as I do, and not as sort of something that sort of would be upsetting, but I just find it very interesting, and I think it's actually worth meriting in terms of putting out there as a topic, simply for the fact that historically, since this club became an MLS franchise, when they missed the playoffs the last 2 times, which is in their first year, 2011, and in 2013, there was coaching changes. So it was more than fair to naturally assume that the future of whoever was coaching the team with the Whitecaps missing the playoffs would be a topic of debate. But for me, that's been something that's been sort of mentioned by people who've been outside of the Vancouver marketplace. I know that Jonathan Tannewall, when he was here briefly a few weeks ago, wondered a little about Carl's future. If anything has been talked about along those lines, it's probably been around not so much what the club might do in terms of deciding his future, but if Carl himself decides about his own future and decides to take on a better opportunity, that could be something that could occur. All indications at this point point to really him coming back next year, although I have talked to a number of people that obviously cover the team as well, and there have been some indications that he will get a chance to start next season. But if the team is struggling by the time they get to summertime, which is about the midway point of next year, then he could be in trouble. And that would be, I think in most people's minds, something that would make quite a bit of sense. I think probably the bigger thing to debate with the Whitecaps, certainly now that they have officially been eliminated from the playoffs, is just how much turnover you're going to have in the squad. Because I think we can really anticipate that there will be quite a bit of change. It's been a big learning curve for Carl Robinson in that regard. He put a lot of faith in players that just haven't performed for him this season, and I think it's proved to be a big learning curve and a big lesson for him as a result. And certainly having had a chat with him off the record a little bit, let's say about a month ago, in regards to that, he seems pretty determined to make a significant or quite a number of changes here to try and put things right. I think the bigger question mark will be certainly when it comes to trying to get in some real quality difference makers. Will the club support him on that? Will they be prepared to sort of step up a level and spend just a little bit more money than they have done to this point to bring in difference makers that probably every team in this league really now require, the way the league has trended towards. So I think it's probably the bigger thing is more the squad turnover, more so than having a debate over his future. But I do say that that's something that no one outside of Vancouver or even in Vancouver should feel terribly bad about thinking about, because the history has been there when this team has not done well since it's been in MLS, that there has been change. So to assume that is more than fair.
Simon, you mentioned the one way that Carl might move on is on his own decision, that he may look for a better opportunity. It sounds, just from reading between the lines of what you just said there, that doesn't seem like something you anticipate. But can you see that? What do you think his ultimate aspirations are in terms of a manager? And there isn't a high-profile job available in this country right now for the national team. Do you think he'd have any interest in something like that down the line, or even now?
No, I think more likely if there was something that was going to lure him away from Vancouver, it'd probably take him back to the UK. So the national team job, I'm not terribly sure, but I'm sure he's well versed in the setup and the situation. And this might not make me very popular. I would probably advise him very strongly against it for a number of reasons. I think there is the thing that I have learned in my time in soccer media, whether when I was working in the UK or over here, is that I'm never surprised by anything that could occur. And so if there is, and so the scenario that he may move to something else during this offseason is very much something that could occur. But I think those things can happen at any club. I think that's probably, like I say, I think that's probably a more likely scenario for him departing the club than the club itself making a decision on him. Like I said, the way that he has talked, and certainly the things that Bob Lenarduzzi has mentioned in various conversations with people and in local media here, is basically been around, that Carl is coming back and they're looking towards next season. And the big challenges in front of them is how they get the squad retooled to try and be more competitive in MLS next year.
To talk about the competitive side of the story on the pitch, where did it go wrong for Vancouver in 2016? We mentioned the lack of goal scoring, but that's maybe not the actual problem. It's more the lack of clean sheets, the leaking of goals that was a downfall for Vancouver. Defensively, what went wrong with Vancouver in 2016?
Well, they were never able to get a consistent back four. But then again, they were never really able to get a consistent starting 11 on the pitch. To make a more general comment, which ties to them struggling to score goals and struggling to get clean sheets, key players just didn't perform this season. They didn't get performances from David Osted. They didn't get performances from Kendall Waston. Tim Parker, I think it's safe to say, probably had a bit of a sophomore type jinx of a season. They just didn't get that consistency. Matias Lava was very disappointing. I mean, the latest example was on the weekend here, where he allowed Alonso to get a step on him to equalize for Seattle in the game against the Sounders. Those guys who were relied upon to provide leadership and guidance with their performances just didn't do it this year. And I think that probably has been the thing that has left many out here really scratching their heads as to why, as opposed to previous seasons like 2015 or even back to 2014, did we not get these players to perform at the same level? Did it have something to do that in some cases he gave contract extensions and it created a level of complacency? It's very difficult to know, but there is a sense, and I think even Carl Robinson himself, I think, has been particularly disappointed that those that he had a sense of really relying on putting in a performance this year just didn't do so. And I've had the sense from him, certainly when I spoke to him, off the record a while back, about a month back, that he seems ready to clear out, a few players here and make some moves. that will at least, make people shake up. And again, I think that's the thing that you're going to want to see. And for me, those are probably the more general reasons as to why the team just didn't perform this year. Certainly in MLS, is they just didn't get performances from key players this year. There was just too much inconsistency. But even at the same time, I think Carl has to take some responsibility for the fact that he chopped and changed the lineup far too often. And Tyler Green makes a great point, my Soccer Talk podcast colleague, about he finds at times that Carl may sometimes overthink some of the decisions that he makes in terms of the lineups that he played. And I think it might have caught him out a little bit at times in terms of what decisions did he make, him coming off one other particular game, going into another, and they didn't get a result. So it's been a big issue. I mean, certainly scoring's something they have to address. Masato Kudo has been also a big disappointment, but as well, there was much expected of him, and obviously at the end of the day, it just never worked with Ottavio Riviero. But then I certainly didn't anticipate the fiasco that was the midseason window with what happened there and the whole thing with the Spindola. Then that led to Giles Barnes coming here. I thought certainly this club had gotten past those fiasco type of days of what they did when we saw the off season of coming out of 2013 going into 2014, but they kind of reared their ugly head a little bit in the summer, and I think it just left everything flat. This team is actually, to be very honest, has not been the same since it lost the Amway Canadian Championship. If you really look at the results from the night they lost the Voyageurs Cup to TFC, that they really haven't been the same since. And I think the way they lost that game has had a profound impact on the confidence of the team. So all of those key things put together probably explain why Vancouver is where it is this season.
One happy storyline from the season is Alphonso Davies, one of the second youngest player ever to start an MLS game, second to Freddie Adu, but a positive story out of Vancouver. Young player that, yes, was from the Edmonton system a few years ago, was brought into the Academy of Vancouver and has flourished this year, graduating from Academy to USL team to the first team in not even a few months. What can you tell us about Alphonso Davies and how positive he has been for the Whitecaps this season?
He's been tremendous. I mean, he certainly has been the one player that has drawn all the headlines. It's been very interesting for me to watch the immediate excitement that people have when they see him get possession of the ball, take players on, like he did obviously on the weekend, and getting O'Neill Fisher to have to force him into a foul to give up a penalty. I mean, the kid has got incredible potential. It's the club's learning a lot right here in terms of how to handle someone like him, because he really is a prodigy, and I think they're doing a fairly good job with it. But the interest in regards to him is just going to continue to grow. Certainly when you see local reports here that a scout from Manchester United might have been at the game on Sunday to watch him, I wouldn't be terribly surprised that it was not the only pair of eyes that have had a good look on him now. Former Whitecap center back Andy O'Brien is now a Liverpool scout, so he would have, I'm sure, made Liverpool fully aware of the potential that Alphonso Davies has. It's been a really, really positive type of thing, and he's been. I'm sure it's probably surprised the club a little bit by just how much he has progressed, because obviously he had been earmarked for being a WSC2 player this season. He certainly started there. First few games in the USL season, he was getting in 60, 65 minutes per game. But the thing that really stood out for me, and that was pretty much the first time I got to see him play, was just how well he stood up against men. Still being as a 15-year-old, because his physical presence and his athleticism is at a point now that he is able to play at this level. And he is a great talent, one that I think is going to continue to grow. The bigger question is, for how long will he actually be a Whitecaps MLS player under an MLS contract? What club around the world, particularly from Europe, is going to come in and put in a real proper offer to take him away. And at what point will that occur? That's going to be probably the bigger question to ask with him.
Well, yeah, and I think that if a big offer were to come in, they'd have to do that, and I would hope that the fans in Vancouver would understand that that's just kind of how the world works here. But I do want to turn, Simon, we've talked a lot about the negatives in the Whitecaps, and as Kevin said, there are some positive stories there. So let's focus on the two other positive stories for the Whitecaps season before we move our topic and maybe talk about the U17s for a little bit. I'm going to start with the CCL play and the 4-0 performance there, which obviously is going to put them in as one of the top seeds in the spring. Has that taken the sting off amongst the fans, amongst the hardcore fans and the general fans, or one or the other? Just talk a bit about that.
Well, I think it's a tremendous thing that they've been able to do, and I think it might have taken the sting certainly off the most hardcore, knowledgeable fans, that they've been able to be as successful as they were. It was the group lined up very well for them, and there was a good sense of confidence before after the draw that people felt that they could win that group, and it proved to be the case. They put things right when they needed to, and so not only to win the group, but to go 4 out of 4 and set themselves up as in the most prime position to get the most advantageous seed, which will obviously get them a fairly favorable draw. They might avoid a Mexican side. Having looked at all the groups, even though there is one more round of games to go, the maximum number of, say, Mexican sides that can get through are 3. So, there is a chance they may get a Mexican side, but they may actually get a quarterfinal draw that might be favorable to them. And of course, they'll get the second leg at home. So, being that those will be, obviously the challenge of that being that those will be their first 2 competitive games starting next season, it makes it a bit of a challenge. But I was reminded to myself last night a little bit that it's a scenario that could probably prove to be quite the tonic, much like how where the Montreal Impact were, I think, coming into 2015. They were able to use that run in the knockout stage of the Champions League to really get their season going, especially off of the comments that Joyce Saputo made before the season started, that the buzz in the city had been lost because 2014, if I'm correct, Kevin, that was such a poor season.
Yes, it was the downfall, yes.
Yeah, so it's you've got a very similar kind of scenario here in terms of where the Whitecaps are at that stage of the Champions League, coming off the season that they've had. That it could work to very good effect in terms of trying to continue to have the interest in the marketplace here, which I think is waning a little bit, and so it's probably come at a good time that they've been able to get into the Champions League. How far they can go, well, anybody knows, because pretty much at this stage, with the fact that we know that the squad's going to be having quite a bit of change and not knowing who they'll get in the draw, it's anybody's guess at this point how far they can go. But I think they would have to be, certainly I think the organization is quite pleased to have gotten as far as they have, and they'll make every effort, I'm sure they can, to be competitive. And even though natural, as everybody knows, they've got challenges in front of them about the timing of when the quarterfinals are, and certainly the fact that they'll have a very different looking type of team on the pitch when they play those games.
The other positive story going on right now in Vancouver, Simon, is the performance of WFC2 in the USL Cup playoff, having won their quarterfinals game on the road against the Switchbacks FC of Colorado Springs. Now find themselves with a home game against Oklahoma OKC Energy. So they have a chance to make it to the Western Conference final with a game at against Swope Park or OC Blues. So they will maybe even have the home field advantage in a potential Western Conference final as well. How impressed were you by their on-the-road win last weekend?
Very impressed, particularly with the fact that they went into a very difficult place. Colorado Springs is not an easy place to go and play. And they, be goal down, and to turn that around and win the game. I mean, all the goals came in the first half, and for them to hold on and win the game, it was actually a very good performance. They went with a fairly young lineup. I mean, they had some of the younger residency graduates, the likes of Caden Chung and Matthew Baldissimo, that were in the starting 11. Kian Sfroze scored the winning goal, but they also, got some veteran presence in there that's made a huge. Kyle Gregg has been a very good acquisition for them to pick up this season, and for him to be able to score at that timely point when they were down a goal and get back to level terms, I think was a great thing. And I think it's quite pleasing to see, especially with the way the team ended the regular season. It was not not in their best coming into the postseason. So for them to go away from home in a difficult place like Colorado Springs and win, I think was an excellent result. And like I say, you're right, Kevin. They've got a very good opportunity here. Obviously, they've got the home game against OKC. A number of heavy hitters have been knocked out at the quarterfinal stage, which I think opens up the who can potentially win it. I think it could be safe to say that an Eastern Conference side is probably going to host the USL Cup final in the end, because I think
the Red Bulls, because the Red Bulls will be so strong,
stronger records left in the overall that are based in the East more so than in the West. But they could get, if the chips fall, they go beat OKC, and then Orange County go to beat Swope Park Rangers. They could host the Western Conference final. So, yeah, there's every chance here that they could have a run. Just to bring in a little side note as something of a topic of debate, would they bring Alphonso Davies back down to see out the playoffs?
That's what I was going with it. Might as well get him experience in winning.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Tyler and I had a bit of a debate, especially before their first game against Colorado Springs, that we really thought that Carl Robinson should have really put Alphonso Davies back in with the second team, because it's a way to experience the playoffs and get playoff experience on your belt. Sure, it's USL, but it's still
he's not going to experience with the Whitecaps this season, so might as well make him experience with WFC too.
But it's getting postseason experience irregardless. Doesn't matter what level it is. And if you want to go for it and be as strong as you can, I think he needs to drop and play there for the remainder of their journey. And I think there probably will be discussions this week, sort of seeing at least him being in the mix, because he could make a huge difference here. Going into certainly this game against the Energy, and it's where he started the season. He knows the players very well. He's certainly got more than enough of the minimum number of regular season games under his belt to be eligible. So I think that's something that we should keep a very close eye on if he gets pulled back down into that, just to try and give them a playoff run. I think it would be a very good idea.
Just quickly on that, are the fans reacting to this run by the two team to get to the second round of the playoffs? Is that something that's exciting fans out there, or is it still kind of a little under the radar?
Little under the radar. I'd say it's very much something that it would be of topic to the most hardcore fan base. But it'll be interesting to see what kind of crowd you can get out. It is on a midday on a Saturday, but it is the Thanksgiving weekend. So it's kind of difficult to know. I certainly haven't seen a lot of local media out yet. We may see a little bit more. I would anticipate the Whitecaps trying and get as much media out as they can, although, the interest now is sort of shifted to the Canucks a little bit. And of course the BC Lions are going very well in the CFL right now. So I think it's a little bit under the radar. Part of the problem that's with that team sort of drawing interest is how difficult it is for a lot of people to get out to UBC and to watch them at Thunderbird Stadium. It's really way out there on the Point Grey campus area here in Vancouver. It's quite a distance to get out from any other part of the Lower Mainland. If they were playing in a place like Swangard Stadium in Burnaby, for example, which is a little bit more central, they could actually get a decent crowd, because it's a little bit more central, and people can come in from various directions to sort of come and watch them play. And I think going forward, they have to give some thought to maybe a different venue in the future in regards to that, if they're going to draw more crowd. We'll have to see. I do anticipate, because it is a playoff game, they'll get a few people out, but I'd say the interest has been more with those that are most engaged with it, and that would probably be the hardcore fan base.
All right, fair enough. Let's move our attention to the Canadian U17 team and the FIFA U17 World Cup on the women's side, which is going on right now in Jordan. Canada with 1 win, 1 draw. The Germans 1-1, 3-2 win over Cameroon to start that tournament. Just in general, Simon, you've been watching that closely. Just in general, what are your feelings towards the Canadians' performance so far?
Very well. Bit wild and woolly against Cameroon, but they did very well to turn that around and win it. And I thought yesterday's draw against Germany was a very good one. That German side, very strong, very powerful. Obviously, they got a bit overrun in the second half, but the fact that they held out and got a point, and at this early in the competition, they've already faced a very difficult opponent and have been able to deal with it. It bodes well for what they're capable of doing in this tournament. Obviously, it's a very short run kind of tournament because obviously it's 4 groups of 4, 16. So you got to finish top 2, and then you're right into quarterfinals right away from that. So, pretty much it's about making sure that they go out and put in their best performances from this point forward. They still need to go out and get a result against Venezuela, who remarkably won their game against Cameroon. I think they coughed up an equalizing goal against them, and then right from the kickoff, they scored, literally from the halfway line. The girl took a shot and nailed it over one of those plays of the week type things that you'll see. You should just go and see the highlights of it. It was quite a remarkable thing. So they've got their hands full against the Venezuela side that, for me, they've got something about them, certainly in terms of their set pieces. So that won't be an easy game on Friday for them to have to win. But I'm very pleased that they've had a very good start and have given a good account of themselves so far, and I would think that they should be good enough to get through to the quarterfinals, even though they've got some business here to get done against Venezuela on Friday.
How impressive has Deanna Rose been? One of the younger player that had some look on the older team. How did she look in that tournament so far? One of the MVPs for Canada.
Yeah, I think that's important. And I'm a big fan of hers because I think she played a huge part in Canada winning bronze at the Rio Olympics back in August. And coming into this team, I think she comes into it with a bit of experience. So, the rest of the team, I'm sure, kind of look to her sort of leadership by example. So it's, her role in this team is probably a little bit different, but an important one, and it's, for her to be the one that comes up with the difference and scores a very good goal against Germany. That just gives a lot of confidence to the rest of the players in the team. And I think she's a very key player from that point of view in the team. And I think it's going to be essential that she still provides that kind of leadership by performance going forward here, because she is a huge talent. There's no question. It'll be very interesting to see how she develops between now and the next Women's World Cup in France in 2019. And we're very much now in sort of that 3-year window of development and trend towards what we will see next when it comes to the showcase of women's soccer then. And one of those things is how a player like Deanne Rose develops. And certainly in this tournament, the role, I think, is a little bit different, but essentially just almost as an important one, if not more important one, in terms of leadership that she can provide. And I think she's done very well so far, and she'll have to continue to do it because obviously the tests are going to get stiffer and stiffer as they go along here.
I've been really impressed with the defender, Hannah Taylor, in this tournament. Spurs certainly getting forward the goal. She got off her head to win that game against Cameroon, but it's more than that. Just her presence in there, her ability in the air has impressed me a great deal. Obviously, the keeper in the Germany game was stood in her head for the most part and played a brilliant game in shot stopping. Anyone else that jumping out at you that might have some future going forward in your mind?
Yeah, I like Spain right now, guys. In particular, I think she's only 15 years of age. Lorena Navarro, who scored 5 goals against Jordan. I'm not even sure she's 5 feet tall, but what a talent. Got a low center of gravity, great little bit of skill. I think this girl's got quite the future. She offers a lot of promise in a Spain side that I think's got some very, very good players in there. I really was impressed with her. I think Mexico have got something about them as well. There's some good players in that team. They certainly are very attack-minded in the way that they play. I think Brazil have got a very good crop of players here as well. I think they've got some very good talent to watch out for in that competition. And and I was also impressed with Japan. Obviously, they made easy work of beating Ghana, but they have a lot of pace in their side, so they can hit teams on the counterattack with great efficiency. So there's a few things out there, but if I had to pick one player and one team, I'd have to say it would be Spain and Lorena Navarre. We want to keep an eye out on that team, and her as in particular. I think we've got a future star with her.
Since the last time we talked, Simon, a lot of things happened in your world. You started a new position with FIFA.com. What can you tell us about your new job and how it's been going since then?
Yeah, it's been 2 months in. And it was really jumping into the deep end right away. Started on the 1st of August, and within about 2 days, it was right into helping with the Olympic coverage on both tournaments. So it's which was a lot of fun, and then rolled out of that into the World Cup qualifying stuff in September, and then into the Futsal World Cup, which is then overlapped into this current Under-17 Women's World Cup. And of course, we still have another 2 tournaments to go. We have the Under-20 Women's World Cup in mid-November in Papua New Guinea, and then a Club World Cup, as we always do in December. So it's been interesting, been a lot of fun. Even though I'm based here in Vancouver, you're sort of connected in globally with the people that you work with around the world. You have to have a very good command of your world time zones with the job. But it's been a lot of fun, and certainly it'll be very interesting to see what more experiences you come out of it. Hopefully there'll be a chance to travel to one of the FIFA tournaments in the not too distant future as a result of it. And it's been a lot of fun. It's a slightly different job. It's a little bit more type of job that I did back in the UK when I was with SkySports.com. You're on shift a lot of the time, and so in monitoring and helping with coverage. I mean, obviously this coming week I'll be very busy with covering World Cup qualifying, which starts on Thursday and will carry all the way through until the following Tuesday with Europe, Asia, South America, and I think Africa also starting with those zones all in action. So lots to do and lots going on, but it's been fun and very interesting to this point.
Real quickly before we say goodbye, Simon, I am curious to get your take on the Club World Cup. It's a tournament that fascinates me. I know FIFA's had some high goals for it in the past that maybe they haven't quite met yet in terms of its popularity. What do you think the future of that tournament is, and can it ever get to the point that it is seen at a level that is the closer to equal to some of the other tournaments FIFA runs?
Well, I always liked the tournament. I've always been a big fan of it because of how significant it is, and what it is. I think it is a bit of a challenge because obviously there's such a short time window that can make it work because of the clubs that are in season, and they've got so many other competitions going on. It makes it a bit difficult to try and make it into a much more bigger or extended type of competition. I'm not sure how certainly under the new leadership at FIFA, if that'll be one of the things that they go back and review and see what they can do to maybe make it better. I still think the format is good. The one thing I would think that they need to consider doing a little bit more, or consider trying to encourage, is to try and get it moved around the world, because it is sort of like a pre-Christmas kind of tournament. For example, I've been a strong advocate of this, that certainly Canada should try and go for this tournament. And the way to make it work is they get it for 3 years, and that each of the 3 MLS cities gets to host it. And as the host team, that MLS side plays in that particular tournament each year, because I think it would draw very, very well. And I think sort of moving around to places that would sort of embrace it, like I would say Canada would, or even the States to an extent, or Australia, or anywhere, instead of playing in the Far East as they have been up until this point, and then maybe and then obviously I think next year they're going to the UAE. If they were able to move it around and maybe go to Africa somewhere, to any of these different parts of the world with it, where people can really get behind it and get excited about it, I think is probably one way to go. I think it's going to be really difficult to change the format of it, simply for all of the challenges of all the different leagues and timelines to as a way to improve it and get more interest. But I think getting it moved around the world is probably the thing that would work best, because I think people would have interest there if they had a chance to watch it. And I certainly think if it was here, people would come out and watch it. Certainly, it's something that would be fun to do just before the holiday season.
That's been proven, though. If you're looking at the CONCACAF Champions League in Montreal, 60,000 people for games, it's the same tournament. It's deeper in that tournament. So no, for sure that it's proven that tournament would draw. And imagine if you have a Real Madrid, a Bayern Munich, or a Barcelona to help sell tickets for those games. You can fill the Big O, you can fill Rogers Center, and you can fill BC Place for those games.
Exactly, and that's the thing that I was thinking about. If there was an agreement done that was done with the CSA, and you do it over those 3 years. Let's say you start in Montreal the first year, Impact are the home team that get to host in it, and then the luck of the draw, you get a Real Madrid or a Barcelona, Bayern Munich, one of these big sides that won the UEFA Champions League that represents Europe, and then in the case of South America, it's either a Boca Juniors or a Flamengo of Brazil. Any one of the higher profile South American sides that won the Copa Libertadores, people will get very excited about that. And if it carries on into Toronto sees the home team, and then you go to Vancouver with the Whitecaps being the home team in it. I just have a feeling that it would draw, especially say there was the Vancouver edition out here, because whoever is the Asian Champions League winner, if it's a Chinese club or a Japanese J-League side, that in itself would be a big draw, let alone the fact that you'd have a high-profile European name and likely a higher-profile South American name in it as well. So I think there's a lot of potential with it in that regard, but it's sort of taking it to places where it would be appreciated. And I certainly think for one, Canada would take it on and really embrace it with both arms.
All right, Simon, we're going to have to say goodbye on that note. We're always thank you for your time. You're always generous with it. Good luck with your FIFA stuff there. Hopefully you get to travel somewhere interesting very soon, and we'll be sure to make sure we call you when you're there if you do that, Simon. Thanks again.
All right. Cheers, guys.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And welcome back. Kevin, some strange story breaking this morning. Canada apparently has been fined $70,000 for fan behavior.
It's not little, $70,000 in the CSA program. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's maybe money that we were supposed to put on the next coach.
Exactly. So I shouldn't laugh.
There's exactly.
A massive list of fines that have come out by FIFA, and if $70,000 is 4 games, it can. I have the list in front of me from FIFA. I messaged the CSA when this came in. It just broke just before the show, so I didn't have time to really follow up in any serious way, but I did zip an email off, and of course they have not responded yet, so which I don't anticipate they will. They generally don't when the story is negative. That's just the way it is. But I have the FIFA list of why Canada was fined this, and it's massive, as I said, worldwide. And if it's $70,000 for Canada, it fathoms me how much money they went to this and where it's going. FIFA should probably let us know that.
Yeah, Johnny, can you tell us where the money goes? Thank you.
Yeah. I would have asked Simon, but I didn't want to put him in a bad position. So we're not Simon, so we can. Basically, okay, Canada Belize was fined for having basically we let, and I saw this one, so we know that this is true. There was some smoke or a flare that went off again in the Canada Belize game, the very first game of Canada's qualifying. That was at BMO Field. So I'll own that one. Well, I didn't light it myself, but I'll own that one that happened. So I guess if that's a fine,
we could see the smoke on TV too. Yeah, that was. Yeah, it's provable. That's probably why there's a fine.
Yeah, so that was on April the 9th, 2015. That one happened. So the next fine came from the Canada-Mexico game at BC Place, the one where there was a massive amount of fans there, and it's there was a pitch invasion, I guess. I wasn't there, so I can't say whether that's true or not. But insulting chants by supporters. It just says insulting. Like, what the hell are supporters supposed to do if not have insulting chants? Like,
I guess there's a line and. FIFA imagined that the line was crossed.
Yeah, I don't know if FIFA's who I want the moral compass to have out there.
Yeah, especially not the light in the last few years.
All right. They also were fined for the away game in Honduras for not showing up at the start of the second half, which, okay, fair enough. Hand up. They did that. We all saw that on TV. And the delayed, insult.
Are they talking about figuratively or literally here?
Well, they didn't work that bad.
I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but they didn't. Certainly the start of the second half. We all saw that on TV. They didn't come out in time. And as someone who does standards for League One Ontario, I wish I had the power to find some teams for not showing up in time, especially when they don't leave the damn pitch when we tell them to get off the pitch. If you're listening out there, League One Ontario people, get your players off the pitch when we tell you to.
Well, game's over. Get out of the pitch.
Yeah, all right. Insulting chants by supporters again. And the final game against El Salvador in BC Place. So I don't even know what that means. We don't know exactly what they're talking about. It's very hard to unpack. It's also hard for me to take this too seriously when these fines seem to be the exact same amount as Mexico's getting fined, which Mexico got fined 5 times for what they do, which to me is much worse than insulting chants. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, unless someone could tell me exactly what it was that they were chanting. And they do actually distinguish on the FIFA list whether it's homophobic or racist versus insulting. And insulting, again, what's that mean?
Like, insulting could be the FU ref chants that we see sometimes when a bad call is made in some of Canadian stadiums, stuff like this. Here are the 11 football associations that were fined for unsporting and discriminatory conduct by their fans during the 2018 World Cup qualifiers. Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, Canada, Chile, Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Peru, Italy, and Albania. Notice the amount of CONCACAF and South American team in here.
Yeah, I don't even get that. The only thing I can say about this, and the only thing that makes me wonder about how this is happening, is perhaps they have more people on the ground because of the P word chant. Maybe that's what's happening, and so there's more people out there. Like you said, the referee's a wanker. It might be that they're reacting to. Like that one gets said sometimes. Dig a hole and bury him when a player's faking an injury.
That could be one. Yeah, that could be exactly. So no, we don't necessarily know the threshold and the standards that they do seem worthy or not of a fine.
Yes, exactly. Although, so there's not really ability to unpack this, but I do think on Reddit right now in the comment after it was reported that Canada was one of the teams insulted, some of their non-Canadians are going, well, one person asked, what the blank does a Canadian insulting chant even sound like? Your maple syrup's inferior. Our jean jackets are superior. Or we hate you, we hate you, we hate you.
Not really.
We're not sorry. We're not sorry. We're not sorry. Please don't feel offended.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
What's the other one? We're not your buddy guy. We're not your guy pal. We're not your pal friend because we're Canadian. You couldn't stop a jelly-filled donut if it was thrown straight into your mouth was one suggestion on here. You get the point. All right. So there, hashtag Canadian insults. You can go ahead, knock yourself out, guys out there. How did Canada get fined for unruly behavior? As someone who's been a long-time Voyageur and in many Canadian national team fans, I shouldn't laugh, but I'm kind of laughing at the idea of FIFA fining the Voyageurs for behavior. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Really?
And are we going to be considered repeat offenders going forward?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I mean, look, there was the stuff with Cindy LaRue back in the day that won here in Toronto, and obviously,
exactly. We all knew what happened after the fact, right?
Yeah, she made serious threats, and it's not like the Voyageurs don't say stuff that's like edgy because jokes aside, it's like we're like any other.
A lot of cynicism involved.
Yeah, any other ultra light, if you prefer, fan base out there. There's going to be stuff that's on the edge and stuff that you wouldn't hear at a hockey game. That's the part of the fun, right? Sure. So what is the line? So we can't cross it. We need to know because insulting behavior is not something that makes any sense to anyone because isn't that what they're supposed to be doing?
Tell us the line so we can really go hug it really closely and go rub ourselves around it. Yeah, just let us know where the line is. And yeah, that's where the 11 football associations were fined. And it varies, though. Like, it goes from just fines for unruly behavior to games being played behind closed doors for Chile because of their fans' behavior, flares, homophobic and racist chants that led to Chile playing a game against behind closed doors.
Yeah. All right. I do say that 70,000 is nothing to laugh at, but it is probably good because back in 1997, there was no way a Canadian national team fan base was going to get a fine because there was like 8 people in the stands that were cheering for Canada. So
and the ref could not hear what they were saying because there was 8 people.
Times have changed, my friends. Yeah, I wonder if the fourth officials who does the report. It's all baffling to me, and there's no transparency there in terms of what these are about. Anyway, as I said, I messaged the CSA. Well, if they respond back, we'll let you know on tomorrow's show. I want to talk about a few things Simon said in his interview to end today in a bit of a bits and bites style to finish this, Kevin. And I think the one that really caught my mind as an interesting talking point, interesting debating point was the Alphonso Davies conversation and what it might mean and whether it would be a good idea to put him down into the USL playoffs or to leave him with the MLS team to play sort of dead rubbers the rest of the way out. Like, what is better for his development? You said
playoffs with the Nest. Just talk about Saturday. Should he be with the WFC2 Saturday? Because it's one and done if they lose. So should he be with them right now? Could he be helpful? Could he be? Because even though some of the WFC2 players practice with the first team, he practiced with the first team, he practiced with everybody as well. So should he be included on Saturday?
Yeah, there's no. If you look at the USL playoffs, they're a sprint, right? So there's nothing that would stop the Whitecaps from having him play in both if they feel that would be okay in terms of his wear and tear on his body. Now, this is a 16 year. Well, he's not even 16 yet, right? He's a teenager, so you'd assume he has the stamina to play in 2 games in a week or something like that. And certainly with the international break happening right now, you would have to think that it would make a lot of sense for them. And it's in Vancouver too. It doesn't even involve a plane ride.
Exactly. The fact that it's a home game might weigh in that decision, in the balance.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any harm or any foul in that. And certainly the only thing I could say to it is when you get into playoffs in North America, first off, it's a unique kind of scenario, and it's really not going to be something he encounters at a high level, the high level that we want him to get to. So I guess a Champions League game would be the equivalent. But there's a lot of hack and grabbing and sort of like physical play that takes place in North American playoffs at the end of the year that maybe you don't want to expose them to. I'm just playing devil's advocate here a little bit. Maybe that might play into their factor as well, that they don't want to risk the kid getting kicked, or some 25-year-old USL pro that's never going to go beyond that level, that just wants to win the title, is going to do whatever he has to win that title, as most competitive people would. Might lash out against him, might put him at risk, and they might look at him as too big of an asset. And I think that therein lies the other part of this. We're hearing stories about Manchester United scouts being there, but Liverpool scouts already around there.
Well, it's normal. A 15-year-old playing at a professional level all across the world, that would draw a lot of eyes. Because
it's going to draw.
That's normal. That's in England. That's when the big talents get discovered and bought up by bigger clubs. That's the age. That's the normalcy. We're just not used to it.
Yeah, he has to be 17 before he could actually be sold, but certainly that's in a year and a half or so that he could be on his way out. And I actually, if his development pathway continues the way it is, I would be surprised if he's with the Whitecaps when he turns 18. I suspect they will sell him on. The asset's just too big. The return that they could get in terms of competitiveness on the field at an MLS level versus what they would get money wise, like how they could take the money they'd get to sell him at 17 versus what he'd give them on the field, unless he turns into a complete wunderkind, to me would be a no-brainer for the Whitecaps. That they're going to take £7 million or £10 million or £20 million or whatever they might get for him and call it a day and wish him luck, because you don't want to hold him back either.
No, and you still got 2 seasons till then. So you still got 2 seasons where he can maybe score between 10 to 20 goals for you in the next 2 seasons, and even continue to grow as a better player, become a natural asset for the national team, and become maybe a type of player where you can sell him and it's going to be in the 6 to 7 figures and be about more than 4, 5, 6, 10 million. That's the type of player that the Whitecaps might have on their hands.
Yeah. And look, we're hearing names like Liverpool and Manchester United and Canadian supporters, although he still doesn't have his full. I've been told by some people that are close to the situation that although he's working towards this and no one anticipates a problem, he isn't quite fully eligible for a full senior cap just yet. So that's why he hasn't been capped. Perhaps by next Gold Cup he will be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if you're looking at the time he's been in the country and living and playing here, and it'll be in time for him to be in the U20s and that type of category very soon.
Yeah, so they're
16 years old. Even if it's 5 years, he's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay.
Yeah, no one's concerned about it just yet, but nonetheless, this Canadian fans are going to worry about that until he has that official clap time. But at any rate, we're seeing United, we're seeing Liverpool in the headlines. The eyes are getting big, but at the same time, I put the brakes on a little bit and go, is that going to be best for him? Is it better for him to stay at the Whitecaps for a couple more years? Is it better for him to go to an in-between club? But then I always wonder to myself, are we holding our players back because we don't have the self-confidence in them? You know what I mean? As long as he has the self-confidence, it doesn't matter. But are we dreaming too little for them when we don't want them to go to the biggest clubs because we want them to get playing time? Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. He goes to United. Is he really going to step in and play? But if he's good enough,
exactly.
He will.
Exactly. So somebody has to take on that challenge and success at one point, right? Might be him.
Yeah, exactly. There's no doubt about it. And
if we always believe that I don't deserve or not going to be worthy, dude, you have to believe that you're worthy. And Alphonso Davies right now believes that he's very worthy. Look at what he's doing at the professional level, and he's 15 freaking years old.
If you're good enough, you're old enough. And as we say, and we stressed many times before, it's only in this part of the world that we would look at. This would be unique, not unique, but special in every part of the world. But add a year and a half to his age, and it wouldn't be unique in any part of the world. It would just be a prospect, a pretty exciting prospect that would be coming up, but nonetheless, nothing that would be out of the ordinary. The fact that it's so young is what makes him particularly whoa. But at the same time, we shouldn't. We've got to think of it that way. Like if he was a hockey player, forgive the analogy, haven't done one in a while.
You're allowed one a week. That's your quota, so you're good.
Yeah, we would be talking about what CHL team he was going to, and he would be, in the context of what we're talking about here, with Manchester United allegedly looking at him already. This would be one of those players that people would be buzzing about, be saying. And we know that he would be in the NHL in 3 years. We wouldn't doubt that because that would be the earliest he could get there.
That's a Crosby situation. That's a Crosby when he went to play for Rimouski. We all knew that he was going to be there only for 2 years and move on to the NHL at 18.
Yeah, or Tavares, or there's been a ton through the McDavid, obviously. I went purposely when McDavid was 17. I drove to see him because I knew that I wasn't going to get a lot of chances without paying $200, Well, so I did,
especially now in Edmonton with the new rink.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not, and I think the Oilers are going to make playoffs. By the way, there's my hockey prediction for the day.
Oh, bold predictions by Duane. Just before we say goodbye for today, Duane, I want to invite our listeners, if they are FIFA 17 players, to tell us their stories at sportspodnet, at Kev Laramee, or send me an email, sportspodcastingnetwork@gmail.com. Subject FIFA 17. I want your review, your thoughts, your experience, your journey. How did they go? What are you playing now? What type of Ultimate Team? Whatever your thoughts are on the game, let us know to help prepare Sports in the Game, the FIFA 17 review that was coming in a few weeks from now. But we need your opinion on the game, so let us know at sportspodcastingnetwork@gmail.com.
All right, and on that note, I'll wrap her up now. Let Kevin say goodbye as always. But before that, reminder, tomorrow, USL Wednesdays, because we're going to preview those playoff games moving forward. And we have a nice interview that we recorded today with Mark-Anthony Kay, Toronto kid that's made good in Louisville. Look forward to playing that for you. I hope you tune in to listen to it. It will be broadcasted at 11:30, but join us a half hour earlier as we have the regular show for a half hour. Then we go into USL Wednesdays for the second half. And until that time, Kevin, as always, say goodbye.
Exactly. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., USL Wednesdays, Mark-Anthony Kay. And until then, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.